Bleu Davinci. What we done started. Look at what we done started. This the people party.
Peace and love, party people. This is Talib Kweli. You are in tune to another episode of the People's Party with Talib Kweli and the wonderful Jasmine Leigh. Give it up.
Cheers, everybody. Woo!
Yeah, how you doing, Jasmine?
I'm doing amazing. I love when you give it up for me, so thanks.
I gotta give it up for you.
Yeah, man, I'm
Got
happy
to
to
give
be
it up
here.
for you. The amazing co-host.
Oh, I'm amazing?
Yeah, you're pretty
Oh my God,
amazing.
You're gonna make me cry.
Jasmine is a good friend of mine. We have another good friend of mine here today. Today's People's Party guest is not just a rapper, he is a lyricist. He is an MC. He is an actor. He is an all-around swell guy. He is a friend of mine. He's one of the classic, legendary, not just West Coast, but globally recognized MCs on the planet. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, give it up for Ras Kass. Razzie Kazzy.
What up?
Thank you, bro.
Thanks for having me.
What's up, Razzie?
Happy to be here. Happy to see you.
Yeah, man.
People's Party.
Yeah,
you know,
man. I've gotten to talk to a lot of my friends doing this.
I've noticed.
Some of the people I've met through social media, but as you've seen, there's a couple of people that I know.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You one of them
Yeah.
homies that I know for real.
Yeah, we go back.
Yeah, so we gonna get into
We got bowling stories.
Yeah, let's start
Bowling,
with
I
that.
love
I was gonna bring that up. That is on my list. When I first started coming out to the West Coast, I would call Ras Kass, and one night we went on a double date bowling at like some Korean gangster bowling alley
Oh,
that he
God.
took me to.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. You showed me
Yeah.
the
we had a-
real
We had a great time.
Los Angeles. We had a good time. Your name, Ras Kass. Not your real name. It's your MC name.
I say it differently.
Okay.
Native Americans, certain tribes, they name themselves.
You named yourself.
It's the name that I took for myself.
Okay, word up.
So it is my real name.
Okay,
it is
got
not
you,
my
got
birth
you.
name.
Got
it
you.
is my name.
What does it mean?
Ras Kass was actually a historical figure. He was an Ethiopian prince fighting with Menelik II for control of Showa. And as I was reading it, he was John IV. I'm technically John IV. On my birth certificate, I'm John Richard Austin II, number 2. But my grandfather and my great-grandfather were John Austin. So I'm John Austin. I'm John IV, John Austin IV.
Okay.
And I felt like, at the time I was trying to figure out who I would call myself, who I wanted to be. I knew I wanted to be an MC. I was already getting knowledge of self, and I didn't want to keep my slave name, as we call it. And so it hit me. I was just like, I am John IV. And still have, lay some respect to my father, my biological, and into my culture and my history. So because I'm not, the Ras, it would be pronounced Ras Kass, like Rastafarian or Ja Rastafari. I'm like, I'm a Cali dude. Ras, I put a twang on it. So I called it Ras Kass instead of
Right.
Ras Kass.
Okay.
The Karis one still calls me that.
Ras Kass.
Ras Kass.
I like it because it rhymes.
Do you understand the meaning of the name Ras
Ras
Kass?
Ras Kass.
You gotta put your pinky up when you say that name.
You've told me on more than one occasion that you did not like me when we first met.
Oh, okay. So, wow, you went there
dang.
too. So, no,
Right
let's tell the
away.
truth, shame the devil.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
we were in.
I think it's a funny story. That's
Yeah, because I was a fan, right? We go to London to do Tim Westwood, and I lose my voice. And Quad decides this is the first time to tell me, because this is my second album that's come out, and I'm already kind of taking some flack from like magazine writers saying I'm some degree of like I'm trying to, almost an implication like I sold out because I did a song with Dr. Dre, and I'm like, dude, I'm a West Coast dude, I'm a prisoner, I'm talk about homies gangbanging. I'm with Battle Cat every other day. I'm being true to myself and trying to be true to, hip hop, and you guys are creating this one expectation that everything I do has to be lyrical styles when I've always done hood music too, mixed in there. And Quad decided to tell me that he felt like I had let him down and I couldn't speak. So I couldn't speak. I was like, oh, and then, then we went bowling, I think.
Yeah, when we went bowling.
Yeah,
That's a great way to squash things.
Look, we've been partying in New York a lot.
Yeah.
So Ras Kass you know, Ras Kass used to be in New York a lot, and you still be in New York a lot.
Yeah.
But
I spent half my time there.
yeah, like when I was first coming up in the game at Raucous, like I'd go out to the party, we'd go out to Lotus,
Yeah.
or AL Skills or something.
Yes.
You know, somebody, DJ Goldfinger would be DJing or
Yes.
something.
Yes.
You know, we'd be at all the hottest New
All
York
the
shit.
hottest clubs, yeah.
Ras Kass was in there with that fur coat.
No, sweating.
No.
Oh,
No,
okay.
this was,
Understand what the design of a mink is for. It's to keep it insulated whether it's hot or cold. So you can rock a mink in the summer and it feel great. So we called it the Wise from the Rangers. He called it the stinking minkin.
the stinking mink.
It's so funny. My grandmother is 92, about to be 93, and she's already told me that I get the mink coat when she takes her demise. So I'm excited to see.
They're beautiful things. I mean, you know, at the time I was rebelling a little bit for my label. So that was the one treat to myself was to buy the mink. So I enjoyed it. It was fun. I still have it.
Now you talked about being a West Coast MC, and one thing I noticed, like you've always been back and forth from New York, and clearly you're influenced by New York.
Yeah.
I heard you on K Slay talk. You just mentioned the Rangers, right? K Slay was talking about you wanted the first MCs to come up to his tenement project apartment and lay down freestyles in New York City.
Yeah, in Harlem.
You know, I've seen you talk about in interviews how you used to sort of reconstruct people's albums or fix people's albums in your head. But you talked about New York State of Mind being a perfect song.
That was the first perfect song I ever heard. Yeah, you know, as a fan, I'm a fan first, and I will always be a fan first because if I wasn't a student of this and learning and appreciating it, I don't think I deserve to be in it. You know, the people like, oh, just want the bag. Well, go do something else, man, because you kind of wasting energy and karma and
your
and
platform.
spaces. Yeah, you wasting space on our platform. So I would study. You know, I heard albums. For one, I loved the records, but I always felt like if he would have just fixed this one line, I still do it to myself. Like I listen back, like you shouldn't have said that. Like if you just changed this one structure of this 2 bars, it would have been sicker. Because it's that whole line for line thing. Like lyrically, how do you get better and better and better, and just raising that bar. And New York State of Mind, I can honestly say I remember first time hearing it, being completely blown away. And there was only one line I thought I would fix, and then I changed my mind.
Which line?
Once they caught me off guard, the MAC-10 was in the grass, and I ran like a cheetah with thoughts of an assassin. Picked the Mac up, her brothers back up, the Mac spit. One ran, I made him back flip. And I was like thinking about if you really hit somebody with a tech, then he ain't gonna do no super backflip. I was like, I made his back split, and that was the only fix in the rhyme, and I was okay with it. Because I was like, he just shot him so hard, he literally did a backflip. But that was the only fix in that rap. It's the first perfect rap I feel
deep,
like.
brother.
I think it's the perfect. It's visual. The storytelling is immaculate. The wordplay, the feel, the vibe, the production. He picked the right record. Like him and Preem
I
bodied
can't
that record.
dispute that. For me, that record would probably be Follow the Leader. I feel like that's a perfect rap record.
Yes.
I felt like Rakim took me in outer space. You listen to that record, you're like, wow, I'm up there with the balls of clay. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. But I bring that up because
I couldn't understand all the rock because thinking about it, just to add on to that, as a LA person, we didn't have a big 5% population, 5%ers. So I just now be picking up bars from Rakim last week. I'm like, oh my God, be speaking. So I think that was already over my head, Follow the Leader at the time, because I remember the first time he said I'm God, I was like, oh, that must be New York slang, like G-O-W or something. I was like, that must mean something else.
Because you can't be calling yourself God.
I grew up Catholic. I'm like, you going to hell? So yeah, I just was a little bit late. But yeah, Follow the Leader, impeccable.
That's the perks of music, because as you continue to listen to it, you get something more from it every time. And how you said, like, you know, you have to grow into it sometimes. There's a lot of things that you listen to when you were a child or whatever that you were rapping the words, but you really didn't understand what you were talking about. And then as you know, get more life experiences, you're like, oh, that's what you were talking about.
I listened to oldies and realized just how grimy they was talking. They was talking slick and perverted.
They hit it a lot more back in the day, though. You had to like know what they were talking about to get
Or when you watch that 5-5 documentary about marijuana, and he says that back in the days, jive was slang for weed, which I didn't know. and it makes a lot of records make a lot more sense.
If you see, I haven't seen the Fab Five.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
I heard it was lit.
Yeah,
As a lyricist from the West Coast, though,
Mm-hmm.
I've heard this before from other lyricists from the West Coast. Is that the shadow of N.W.A. and Dr. Dre and Ice Cube, and obviously what they did was very artistic and culturally relevant and very lyrical. But you know, the shadow of gangster rap, which was started by N.W.A., was sort of very big and hard for a lot of people to escape from. Is that a true thing?
I would say yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think within the community of hip hop in LA or the West Coast,
Mm-hmm.
everything else was coexisting. It was what the market started trying to determine what was viable. Because you got to remember, at the same time, you still had Dale. You know, Dale got to come out and do Mr. Dabalina. And,
Right.
You know,
but he had to
but
market
yeah, he
market
was
it as,
associated
well, this Ice Cube's
his
cousin.
Yeah, that's true. And they were out. We still call it, like, you know, only up until recently did people not have to succeed based off the N.W.A. family tree. Really, 2009ish maybe. You know, everything's kind of been from that tree, and there was a time when you could still, you know, they weren't necessarily exclusive to each other. There was a time where the gangster party had the hip hop heads, and the hip hop heads had the gangster party in it because they were all from the same neighborhood. They all grew up together, and then we got that differentiation. It was really based on record sales, and then what the market, what labels started determining was viable, and then, you know, artists tend to parrot, you know, what they hear, like, oh, well, we this and y'all that, and then originally it wasn't that. But it was a hard fight. I mean, honestly, there was very few of us getting signed, getting major record deals, because, you know, labels just felt like, why should I get that when I can get another Ice Cube, and you know, or you know, you weren't going to get another Ice Cube. You were going to get a Rice Cube. You're gonna get a fake,
Rice Cube.
Right.
You're just going to get a fake version. You know what I
Right.
mean? But you know, labels aren't really in the business necessarily of finding talent. A lot of times, they're just looking for, you guys got a Prince. We want a Prince.
And that's the problem, because you can't keep replicating people, and that's why things are not as genuine. 'Cause
Right.
You have somebody that doesn't even know the other person's story that they're trying to rap like.
Exactly.
You said that New York had the influence of the 5% and the more cultural influence, and you joked about just now getting things that Rakim said, but some people might say they just now getting things you said in Nature of a Threat, or Nature or Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah, you know, well, for me, I was getting knowledge itself, but it wasn't 5%. I was stepping into Nation of Islam, Moorish, the Moorish nation, Nation of Islam. So my information base was different, although akin to and related to 5%, where somebody else, you know, wherever you get it, encyclopedia, you know, I didn't know what whom he says means at first. Just not, you know, I don't have that cultural background. You know, I grew up a Catholic, so there's certain things that, you know, you get it where you get it, and you build the rest of it as a foundation. And so for me, I was always history and Moorish science is what I was building on. And so that's why I was coming out the way it came out, and why some people couldn't get it. You know, just certain songs, Nature of the Threat. You know, there was some people that really felt offended.
I was thinking about interviewing you, and I was watching some of your old interviews, and you expressed, surprisingly to me, a little bit of regret about that record.
Yeah.
Now, to me, Nature of the Threat, I think for a lot of hip hop heads, whether you're white, black, whatever, it is considered a standard bearer for lyrical hip hop. Like when people are like, "Oh, hip hop is dumb, it's not lyrical, it's not smart." Have you ever heard Ras Kass, Nature of the Threat?
Right.
You know me, obviously I'm a pro-black rapper.
Right.
I don't feel like there's anything wrong with that record. You know what I'm saying? Like,
this was my only regret. I don't regret the facts. I can't change what the facts are. Theses start with a opinion, and then you use facts to prove the opinion. And so, at the time, I was pretty fired up, and I feel like I was a little meaner. There's a little way to do tough love.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Or facts.
Right.
And so I don't regret the song. I don't regret making the song. You know, it was in my spirit. It meant to be said. Like it needed to be said. It flowed out so naturally. It is what it is. I don't regret that. I just felt like sometimes you gotta put the medicine in with a little Kool-Aid or something. I was just strictly like, shut up. eat the medicine.
Right. Right.
And I kind of, you know, like to my company's credit back then, because that was on my demo. So I mean, they knew what they was getting.
Right.
they knew, you know.
Right.
We used to have those conversations like, what did you think was gonna happen? I wrote an 8-minute history on racism and the evolution of humanity. Like, when do you think I'm
Right,
gonna
8
jump out of a
minutes.
6'4" with no hook?
Right.
Like, yeah, like, when do you think I was gonna put on a Jerry curl hat and
Jerry
jump
curl
out of 6'4"?
I would love
That's
a
what it
Jerry
is, because
curl
it's
hat.
all, to me, it's like a uniform. I just, like,
Throw on the juice.
all of a sudden, everybody had braids and in the khaki suit and, you know, and walking, you know, it's like, honestly, I literally remember telling the owner of my company, like, bro, I forgot how to crip walk before you met me. I forgot how to.
Right.
Like, I've been doing this,
That's
bro.
some shit I outgrew.
I'm cut from this cloth, and I got some information and some knowledge of some self and some direction from older homies that wanted to see me do better. Why would I go backwards on my homies?
When you did Soul on Ice, it was very impactful back, you know, turned 20 in 2016, and now you're doing another one. Why do you feel it's important to redo it, and are you worried about, you know, that legendary song like having to...
Oh, the album. It's the album.
Well, yeah, this is the album.
The whole album.
Sorry.
Soul on Ice album.
Yeah, for me, Soul on Ice 2 was not something necessarily that I was gonna revisit. And I've done a couple of projects in the past 3 years, because, you know, at first it would have been like my 20th anniversary. And just in the past like year and a half, I just felt like I was recording these records that subconsciously were for something. And I had to just take inventory and understand what I wanted to do and how I felt. And, you know, like, I'm a firm believer of, you know, never put out a rhyme before it's time, never put a song out before it's time. The Blasphemy record, I wrote those records in 2005, half of them. I just sit them to the side and come out till 10 years later. So with this, it was just time for me to take some inventory. It's almost 25 years of my life. I've been doing this for more than half my entire life. You know, we're blessed to be able to look up and have that kind of journey, whether it had all the baubles and the 18 Bentleys and all that, that's not what's valid to me. The fact that I got to pursue my dream, have a life, have a career, doing something I love, and look at, you know, take some inventory about who I am as a human being. What have I learned? Did I get better? Did I get worse? And then the other part was, outside of looking in the mirror for me, was looking at society. When I wrote Nature the Threat, how wrong was I? I think it's getting worse. So
That record is very relevant.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that album holds up. It's literally song for song relevant. And I wanted to analyze that in and of itself, to look at myself. Like, the first song on the album is called Silver Anniversary, and I'm talking about 25 years later. What's different? I'm like, not much. Especially
in Trump's America, it's like we're going backwards a little bit.
Well, I just said that. It's a regression, so I think I'm even more right than ever. And it just was, you know, it was just certain songs. I was never trying to do, like, for brand purposes, #2. But for me, this was the second stage of me looking in the mirror, 25 years older, 25 years later, and trying to do some self-analysis about who I am as a person.
You spoke about accolades and not receiving the accolades that people get with the material items, but I mean, you and me both got Source Rhyme of the Month.
Oh yeah.
That's like a huge accolade.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Remain Anonymous is the record, right?
Yeah, I got 2.
You got 2, I only got 1. So look at that. But explain how that feels for people who are not MCs. What that means.
For me, that's all. Look, my journey started simple, and they always say be careful what you ask for, but I'm very thankful for what I've gotten. And so all I really wanted was a tape or a record with my voice and my face on it to give to my mother, because she believed in me. And I wanted everybody, because I'm a fan first, all the people I looked up to, I wanted them to say, you're dope. I wanted Pharaoh Monch and Nas and Tupac and Big Daddy Kane and, you know, too many to mention, Redman and Wu-Tang Clan and Big Pun, to say, you know, Mos Def, Kweli, gang of people. I wanted them to say, you dope, Common, Twisted, whatever. I keep on going. And so That's really what I wanted to get, and then let alone getting a source, Dope is Quotable.
Twice.
Twice. The first time, I'm like, okay, like these are people that changed and affected my journey, my life. I'm thankful to this culture. It gave everybody, the majority of people I know, and lots of people I don't know, this music in one way, shape, or form has given them a life, a career, a journey. And so, to be appreciative of that and be regarded as really good at doing what we do, that that's always humbling for me. I wish we still collectively appreciated the craft of being a lyricist, because this is in 2019. And I don't like to be the bitter old guy. That's not my job. Like, we still look like kids, especially me. I don't run around here be a kid until I can't quit.
Right.
But
I don't want to grow up. I'm a toy.
well, I'll be a grown man, but I don't want to beat up face. I want
kid,
the face. But like, this is the only job where being whack at it is the reward. Like, you can't be the Indy 500 driver and keep crashing the car when you start it.
Yeah.
They're not gonna let you drive the car anymore. You can't be the guitar player like, I'm thrashing, nothing.
Breaking strings.
They're gonna get out of here. You can't say I'm the fastest man alive, and and
Not
you
with lyrics.
moonwalking.
Right.
So. This is the one thing where it's like, rap, but I don't care about your lyrics. Like, what is it? I don't even understand that. So I don't know when we turned into like full moron, where being bad at what you do is the reward now.
Right.
But we were talking about it like before when Angela Rye was here, because it's like a difference between how hip hop and rap used to be, and now it's this pop rap and this because when rap first came out, it was about storytelling, and you mentioned that right there. It's like, how many songs that are out right now are really telling a story to where you can follow it from beginning to end? It's just random words that rhyme in a hot beat.
Yeah, some comedian, it was pretty cool. It was, I just saw it tagged, and somebody tagged me on it. A young lady, comedian, and she was doing Roxanne. And she rhymed the first verse of Roxanne, and then she did another successful Right Now groups. And it was,
I saw that.
It was really
Right,
bad.
showing you the difference.
Oh, it really was
saw
bad
that.
by comparison.
Right.
And I don't know. I mean, I can't tell people what to like, but I do think that people are normally consumers and not connoisseurs of stuff. And we were just having this conversation upstairs about wine, and some people know how to take the glass and stir it and sniff it. Oh, it's 1782
sorry,
with
Jerry.
all the little bourbon, and they know, they understand all that. Most people aren't connoisseurs of music, so they just, if you keep showing it to them enough, they'll buy it. So it's kind of like the McDonald's effect. We all know McDonald's is not good for you, unless this is your sponsor. Unless they give me some money. McDonald's give me some money, then it's really good. But yeah, like, but they spend so much money. Twice on Sundays. No, but it's just they have marketing. They have marketed things to the point where they've tricked you into thinking the food that ain't good for you, because everybody else likes it, it's got to be good. And so we've kind of been trained on the diet of trash. I mean, I always advise people to go somewhere, honestly, get out of this country and go eat a piece of fish. Have a salad. Like, we trying to buy organic, and even our organic ain't for real.
Right.
Like drink some real water to change your life. You know what I'm saying? Eat some real meat. It's a whole different. You don't get the itis. You get energy off of food and water, and when it's not all the pollutants and all this other stuff they add in it.
Money controls everything, because if you have money to pay for the marketing, that is what people are going to look at. So it's like, you go on the radio and it's all the trash songs with the beats. That's all you're hearing on the radio. So if you don't have access to any other music, you're going to think that that's good, because that's what you're listening to.
And that's even a new thing, because when Ras started and I started, it wasn't that. It was only the free radio. There was no radio you could pay for, internet that you had that you could, you know what I'm saying? It was nothing like that. And it's interesting that when people have more choices,
Right.
how they take in less information.
Well, because now, for instance, you know that you have a conversation and your phone is by you. You have a conversation about whatever tampons. Next thing you know, it's
I don't be
10
doing that,
million.
but-
I know. I'm sorry.
Go on.
I'm clearly using a tampon right now. But anyway, you have a conversation about it, and the next thing you know, that's all that's on your Instagram. You know what I mean? Because
The algorithms
are set up for that. Like you just give like a little hint, and then they're like just showing you those ads. So you can literally be in. For instance, I was talking to one of my friends, and she looked at somebody's Instagram that was like 20. We don't see 20-year-olds' Instagrams because we're not following them. But their Instagram is in a state of shock, and it's like all they're seeing is the cucumber sucking and all of that other stuff. So they're like, "Oh, this is cool," rather than
That's funny because all I see is like people my age talking about how whack it is. That's
exactly,
my algorithm.
that's what your
Right,
algorithm
right,
is.
right.
If it wasn't for the shade room, we probably wouldn't have seen it at all because it would have stayed on the little kids stuff. But money rules.
I just
the
see
world.
like Spinderella talking about how whack it is. That's
Right.
the shit I be seeing. Moni Love confused about what's going on.
Right.
I'm like in the
Shouts out to
middle.
Moni too.
I have like the young followers and then the older ones. So it's like I see a little bit of both.
You are but very deliberate though about this sort of fraternity of MCs.
Yeah.
Throughout your entire career, you've been in groups. And I want to ask you about Golden State Warriors too, because I want to know what's going on with that. But you've been very much like, what are we doing, guys? You started like your first big record was with the Sway and King Tech on the Street Fighter soundtrack,
Right.
and you was on with some impressive MCs. But since then, like when I'm listening to Ras Kass Spotify, it's all these records with just rappers and producers, working class, bar for bar rappers
Right.
and producers. Like you're like, whatever. I'm gonna come do a song with you. Why are you like that? Because I'm like that too.
It's the right thing to do.
I know I'm like
that's
that too,
why.
but I find it's rare. It's rare. Not everybody's built like how we built.
They don't care about the
like
craft.
people, and I think artists are visionaries. Artists be like, so when you get on, your career becomes about maintaining being on. So
Right.
you start being tunnel vision about what I got to do, what makes business sense, and you stop thinking. But everything I hear from you, everything I see from you, it's very competitive. It's like I'm competing with y'all. I'm
Right.
competing with
Friendly
this-
competition,
Yeah, I'm
definitely,
competing, but we're all in it together.
I'm a fan first, again, and I enjoy networking, doing creative things with creative people. So I'm not, I'm lucky. I've worked with Dr. Dre, DJ Premier, even Kanye. But Willie's mama from down the street might have a cool beat.
Right.
So I don't really care about all that. And I think, I would hope, because we don't know what the future holds. Nobody, knows. I'm going to be the most popping thing trending in a month. We don't know. I don't want it to be because I'm dead. But, you know what I'm saying, for something really positive and popping, and then you pay attention to the music. But I want to make music for the sake of making music. When I hear records, I'm almost A&R them. Whether I'm hearing my homeboy's music or it's my music, I'm 9 times out of 10, I'm like, who would sound kind of dope just maybe on the hook on this part or just for the intro. So, I always at least try to reach out to people that I hear on things to say, hey man, would you like to be a part of? I wouldn't mind if you just did this part. Like it was really dope to for the new album, man. I reached out to CeeLo. I know his time is money. I can't afford all, can't afford to pay him what he did. And he didn't ask me for nothing. He's just like, yo, I got you. And he bodied it. And the dopest thing was just like, because I heard him on this record. I'm like, yo, I hear you on the hook. He took the record and he was like, you want me to do a verse? And I was like, well, not really. no disrespect.
Like, wait a second, CeeLo
Do
do
I
got
want you to do
verses.
a
I'm like, I heard the singing part, but look, feel free because you may hear something I don't hear. But it was just dope. That's how I want to be. No matter what, is like, let's make the record the best record it can be. Not
The record is king.
Not be right. Don't be the groupie about who's popular. You know what I mean? I've watched that many a times of people just groupie on whoever's popular. It's not even for the sake of making a hot record or a great record. It's about you just being whack, being corny about who's popular today. Bro, I've been popular since middle school.
That's that Libra, baby.
Yeah, for real. I really, you know.
He's a Libra too.
I'm a
I
Libra.
always
Oh,
know
well,
the Libras.
goddamn.
I know I have a problem.
I'm a Libra too.
So am I.
Yeah, okay.
And we're September Libras too.
Yeah, 26.
29th.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, so, you know, for me, it's just about, I hate to say for the culture, but I love the culture. I love the creative aspect of making music that at least I think is really cool.
Right.
And hopefully other people can enjoy that journey with me, you know, whether they're popular or not. So that's with MCs, I'm always reaching out to people based on what the music is telling me to do.
And thank you for having me on Barmageddon, by the way.
Oh, thank you, brother.
I appreciate that.
You killed it.
I overheard you upstairs mention that your father was a police officer.
Yes, sir.
The first record that came on my radar from Ras Kass.
Miami Life.
It's Miami Life.
I'm
After
rebelling
Police.
against my dad.
That's what that is.
Literally.
What was that like when he first heard that record? How did he respond to it?
Interesting. I don't know. You know what? We never discussed it. I've never asked him. I've said in interviews and been perfectly honest. Yeah, my pops, I'm like two sides of the same coin to me and my pops. He's the, 6-foot Marine, police officer, rigid, and I'm the one with a bottle.
Free-spirited.
5'1".
Spirited.
Yeah, I'm 5'1" with a bottle, hanging out with the homies. Like I remember telling my friends, I ain't 5'1". That was a joke. But anyway, but the point is, like for example, I remember knowing what time certain shifts, police, like departments, like divisions, like they change shifts between blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. So I would tell my homies what time to go rob stuff.
Oh my God.
I was like, yeah, because these cars are going in,
Right.
and those got to wait till the other ones come. So if you wait till they get almost middle to the station, then you rob stuff. So then they don't know if they got to turn around, if they got to go back with the other dudes. Yo, bro, I'm a different kid.
I have a question since your father is a cop. So.
Well, he's retired now.
Okay, even so. So you grew up, in that dynamic. So how do you feel about, the cop violence that is going on and the protesting against the cops and when people are disrespecting all cops because, they're saying all cops are bad if they are not speaking up on the injustices?
Well, I never speak in complete. So I can't figure the term. But I mean absolutes. I don't speak in absolutes. So there's no absolute monolithic anything full one way. With police, we need to be talking about it because they killing a lot of people. My pops personally told me that at some point he kind of got forced out of retirement because his partner planted drugs on a Mexican dude. He says, I don't know whether his partner was black, white, Asian, Latino, I don't know. I didn't ask him that, but I remember him, and I remember that time period. And I'm not gonna lie, I think he said he was a white guy. I just don't want to incriminate nobody, and I don't know for certain.
Right.
But the point of the matter is, they knew he was a known drug dealer, but they didn't catch him that time. So dude just planted something on him. And then my father had to talk to my mother, and she's like, "You got to do the right thing."
Yeah.
And so he had to go testify.
Right.
Wow.
And then they was like, well, you better watch your back.
That's bad news for a police officer.
Right. You got to watch your back because if they start shooting,
they're not going to protect
they're
you.
not going to protect
Yeah.
you. And so my father had to retire. So, I mean, at the same time, I was saying after police, he was going through his own journey saying after police, having to stand for what he believed in. But yeah, we need to be talking about it. When you kill a little, look, I don't wish this on nobody, but there's a problem with Americans. There's a problem with America when you think one kind of life is less than another one.
Oh, yeah.
And we have that problem in America where, unfortunately, white people can rationalize what happens to a black child. Like, well, maybe he shouldn't have threw his hands up. But if somebody did that to your mother or your father or your kid or your baby, you would die. There's an empathy problem in America.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And the thing is, at the end of the day, they're killing people for no reason. And we've seen so many different cases where there's a white person getting arrested. I literally saw a video of this dude dancing. And they didn't shoot him. They just tackled him and arrested him like
I've seen
what
him
they're supposed to
slap the
do.
police officer and still.
Yeah, you seen the Stone Mountain where the dude got his hand on his pistol.
Yeah.
And the cop is still like hey, you know, what's going on, guy?
Right.
But it's interesting what you said about, you know, she asked about, because that's a thing in the activist community, that there is no good cops. And I have a line on a record I got with Jay Electronica, All of Us, where I say the good cops either retire or get fired. You know, we all know the Serpico story, so it's like, that's what I think that people speak to, is that it's so systemic. The police are working for the system. They working to serve and protect the property, right? So even if you're a good dude, you know, when I was working at Inkiru Books, there was an organization called 100 Black Cops. And it was led by this one black dude who was in Bed-Stuy. It was black cops in Bed-Stuy who lived in Bed-Stuy. And which was rare because most of the cops lived in Long Island.
Right.
And it was white dudes from Long Island who had, but these guys were they made it a point to live in the neighborhoods they were patrolling, and they were trying to be good, upstanding cops. But I could imagine that it was very hard for them. I could imagine that, like you said, what your father went through, when you try to do the right thing, the system is so toxic, that thin blue line, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's really the problem with
They gotta clean
with
it
police.
I mean,
accountability.
you have to. I mean, the system is already designed for somebody to lose, right? So, I would say this. It's a saying, and it was first it came for the communists, then and I did nothing.
Right,
then it
that's
came
from
for
the
blah, blah, blah.
the priest from Nazi Germany.
From Nazi Germany.
Yeah, talk about the
And
socialists.
then they finally came for the Jews, and then there was nobody else to come because, you understand what I'm saying? So you have a responsibility to all humanity to do what's right. Because if you only care when it happened to you, then it's too late. Because it will happen to you too.
That's right.
And that's what I used to tell my Mexican, my Latino homies, like, you keep doing politics, even in prison, and hanging out with skinheads, people that'll kill your mama, and now they want to build a wall around you. And guess who's going to stand up with you to say, you don't build a wall nowhere? We will.
That's right. Black and brown
we
unity.
Have black and brown, we need to stay
Right.
together. Same thing, white people, get it together, bro. If either you part of the human race or you the enemy.
That's right.
And that's what I'm about. But we gonna call a spade a spade. If you on some fuck shit, I gotta call you out on it.
Can you speak on that a little bit? Because right now our country is moving more fascist and more nativist. And even in the black community, there are people in our community who hate immigrants and who blame some of the problems that we have, some of the systemic problems we have on black people on immigrants. And in LA in particular, you have a history of tension between black and brown communities. I feel like the whole black and brown unity in LA is more prevalent in two ways. One, because you definitely have more of a history of the tension, but because there's more of a history of the tension, there's more of a need to show the black and brown unity.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think if Khalid Muhammad, if a man won't treat you right, what makes you think he would teach you right? We are mistaught as Americans, period. Still celebrating false holidays and fake this and whatever. They won't teach you. Niggas, they still teach you that some white guy discovered something. You can't discover places with people on it. You know, so we are miseducated people. And then, you know, everybody, we live in a country that says, this is the hierarchy. Let's not play with it. White man, white woman. Asian man, Asian woman. Then it's black woman, black man. They got us at the
It's
bottom.
black man, black woman,
Oh, no,
for sure.
No, it is black woman, black man.
Black women are the least protected out of everybody.
We can agree to disagree.
We take
because
that for everybody.
During slavery, they broke us, they raped you guys, and made us watch under penalty of death. Even my mother, my father had to go to war. My mother just had to get educated. She had a different story and a struggle. And I'm not saying those struggles are, I don't compare pain. So I don't compare like the Holocaust with the blah, blah, blah. I say it's all shitty. But this caste system was designed to castrate black men.
Yeah, keep them enslaved.
We were castrated, and it's purposely. That's why you saw all the shows, even in the TV shows, it was a strong black woman, it was the lazy slouch ass man. They've always created that dynamic for us to be beneath, and we got to recognize our power and protect our women. I'm not saying you.
I think what you're
say-
saying is as accurate. I think what she's saying is accurate as well, because the numbers support the point that Jasmine is saying. I think the numbers support that. You know, when you talk about privilege, we're talking about who has privilege. Like, we as black men, everything you're saying is true. the system is designed, especially when we talk about castration, because white supremacy is based on fetishizing us and making sure that we can't have children and make sure we don't take their women. And racism is, a system of racism is built on that. But I think the result of it is because as women will face the violence more, and and then when we start talking about LGBT and trans issues, it's like when those communities are dealing with like the double oppression. But I think stating those numbers and saying that the numbers back that doesn't take it away from your point at all.
But also
about the caste system.
I say that the black women is the least protected because at the end of the day we fight for feminists. That's for white women. We fight for black men, and then it's like every time when it's like black women are like, for instance, the Chris Brown situation when Chris Brown was talking about women in good hair, or whatever. I didn't see anybody come to the support of black women, but black women. But when there's an issue with black men, black women always are the first one.
So I wouldn't have known that he said.
No, I think the same way that I think that you're correct when you talk about the data of who's really getting the brunt of it. Yeah, I mean, I would have to say like, just because I do think that black women are often oppressed at the hands of black men. So they deal with that too. But with that. This is where those conversations break down, I think, because while you're right about that, I think to say I didn't see anybody, that's perception. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I think it depends on where you're looking. It becomes confirmation bias because I think there's plenty of black men who disagreed with those Chris Brown lyrics, and I saw that. Do we need to step up more? Absolutely.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But if the conversation starts with I didn't see, then it's like it starts to cut off.
Okay, you know I can understand that.
You have had a very unique experience in the industry is because you've been around a lot of, like you said, the Dr. Dre's, the Kanye West, the people like that, the Coolios, you know what I'm saying? Like, you've been you've had major label deals, big budget records, this and that. But I've also heard you speak about just how difficult that was for you to be yourself in some of those situations.
Right.
I've heard you talk about advice that Dr. Dre gave you. Could you share some of that with us?
The one thing Dre said to me was, I think I was on my second album. I mean, no, my third album, and he was mixing something, and the kind of thing he is a lover of just good hip hop. Like he just likes music. He's a fan.
Right.
And so I just remember, it was the Van Gogh record, and he was like, "So how you feeling?" I was like, I'm doing okay. I was like, I think it's dope. He's like, nigga, you ain't confident. I was like, bro, I don't have, I used to watch, bro and them got budget. They kicked out Michael Jackson from the studio. Paid $1 million, like, beat it.
Right.
Wow.
Pun intended.
Right.
So I was like, I don't have the resources you have, Doc. I can't just fly in Mary J. Blige to see if I want her on the record.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I don't have that, but with what I got, we got busy, and I started playing him the records, and time went on. Long story short, he's mixing Eminem's show, and we were in Hollywood at a bar. He had just finished sequencing and mastering the album, so he's playing me Eminem's show, and it's just me and him. And he's like, when the album coming out? I was like, the company merged and blah, blah, blah. He was like, Ras, if you stay on that label. Oh, and he had gone on MTV and gave me his top 5. So it was Rakim, Eminem, Nas, Jay-Z, me.
Oh, it's awesome.
Excellent company.
Oh, yeah, great company to be in. And he was like, yo, you know I gave you top 5. I'm like, I heard, trust me. And I can always remember, because we had two-way pages back then.
Right.
I was like, yeah, my two-way went off, fool.
Right.
I know you gave me
throwback.
a lot of top, I know you gave me that love. Thank you, brother. He's like, I didn't have to do that. I was like, of course, dude, you're Dr. Dre. You don't have to give me your top 5. He was like, but I said it because it's true. And I was like, thank you, Doc. And he said, and he said, I didn't even like you at the time. I remember that too. Because I piss people off, and I get it. I'm arrogant. I get it. But no, he said, he said, you're a star, Ras. He's like, you're a star. I was like, thanks. He's like, nah, personality, look, whatever, bro. Like, you a star. You got the talent, you got the skills. He's like, I just don't think at the label, if you stay there, you'll never be the star you are. And it stuck in the back of my head, and it just seemed like they kept, you know, there's a clause in our contracts that say if your company's either unable or unwilling to perform, then they're in breach of contract. And my company was unable and or unwilling.
Yeah, I've been there before.
Yeah, and so there was just a rough, you know, it was, what I try to tell artists is, you guys running around here shucking and driving to get signed, it's not that easy because now you're playing a politics game. That, you know, my head of A&R deaded my Dr. Dre record, swore everybody beneath him to secrecy, except one person told me that day after his execs left, his bosses, that he was like, dead that record. And I had never done anything but did everything he, you know, do a song with my artist. Yeah, of course, bro. Da-da-da-da. He the dude I spit on at the Source Awards. But, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was crazy. Like, you got people hating. You got legal department. You got all these departments that I'm not giving nobody no hand jobs.
Right.
So that ain't gonna work out for me.
Right.
So, but
You gotta be real upset to spit on a nigga, though.
Yeah, because he tried to play
Oh, I
me,
thought
bro.
when you said spit that
No,
you
yeah, I
meant
know what he
like
meant.
rapped on him.
No,
I forgot about
you
the story
actually-
until you just said it. But
I spit in my hand and put it in a nigga face. Bro.
And mushed them?
Yeah,
Nah, that's-
because I'm not no sucker, bro. I'm a watch baby. We don't play that shit.
Right.
But
I never seen a spit.
sorry, I'm
mush.
about to get all angry. I'm sarcasm and shit. Reliving the moments. No, but you know, it's like, so just imagine trying to get signed and you playing, you know, all this politics with things that have nothing to do with you, or somebody that has a weird agenda or might like you. I don't know what it's about. But you trying to keep the ship afloat. Meanwhile, your mama and all your homies think you're rich, and your girlfriend, everybody think you're rich. You're like, bro, I'm not rich. Bro.
right, you on TV.
Right, I'm on
you rolling
TV.
with Dr. Dre.
Right.
Yeah.
I got a couple of checks, but dude, it's not like that. And then the crazier thing, with that being said, is after it's run its course and everything is soured, bro, it took me 9 years to get fired. They spent more money suing me to keep me than they put and invested in my career. They didn't pay Dr. Dre. They couldn't afford him. Dr. Dre's $500,000 for one beat. You think they was gonna pay that for me? So they, you know, it's like you get yourself to a certain point, and then the hardest thing is like you said, that artist thing where you're trying to do what can keep you. You get tunnel vision, and you trying to keep the ship floating, and then it's crazy because there's people standing on your boat, popping it out, putting holes in it, and you like plugging holes.
That's right.
For real. And trying to paddle.
Wow. did everything.
Yeah.
Now, with that experience, it led you to be early on crowdsourcing.
Yeah.
I think in the hip hop space. Pasta News called me once. I was very, very sort of anti-crowdsourcing. And I have to admit, at the time I was anti-crowdsourcing, I wasn't aware of your history with it. But Pasta News called me and said, we're going to release this D.U.I record, I think with Indiegogo is who they went with. And I remember being like, I'll support it, bro, but I don't think it's a good look. He's like, why? I'm like, because y'all De La Soul, man. Like, I don't want to be an executive producer on a De La Soul album. I want as a fan for De La to be, I don't want to have to help De La, right? But then they got $500,000, and then my tune changed a little bit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like now, when I spoke to Mace about it, he was like, "Don't think that $500,000 went in our pocket. Like we used that to make the record." But then listening to you talk about it, my tune changed even more because you put it in such a clear business sense. In one interview I was watching, you was like, "Why am I gonna press up all these records and have them sitting there and you ain't even ordered one?"
Right, the steak dinner concept.
Yeah.
So if I own a restaurant, why should I cook up 1,000 steak dinners and hope 1,000 people come by them?
Right.
At least with that, you know, it's the pre-order theory. So as long as I know what I'm doing, I can make these many shirts, I can do this many, you know, it's a direct relationship with your market. We're in a time where things are still developing. We don't, look, 1 minute it was MySpace, then the next minute it's Facebook, then the next minute it was the Gram, then the next minute it was...
Right. Remember Second Life?
Second, okay, you're showing your age. What is that?
And
No, I remember that my label that I was on at the time was like, you have to do Second Life.
Yeah.
And I got this whole Second Life page that I saw the other day that I was like, oh yeah, they was wrong about that shit.
Right.
Was that
And that's what
before-
we don't know. And they're constantly evolving, and the whole thing is that...
No, it wasn't you, Jared. It was after you.
Wait, was that before or after MySpace?
That was around the MySpace era, I think.
Before or after Black Planet?
I'm sure after Black Planet.
Yeah, right before Black Planet.
Oh,
Now,
damn, now that's
I wasn't really
old.
on Black Planet.
I wasn't either. I just remember the homie
I think
You
most
know?
of the
Yeah,
TV
people was getting into relationships on Black Planet.
That was our era. 87 babies era.
I just think there's no set model because this is still constantly evolving. The technology, what the trend may be with whatever platform is going to keep changing. Somebody's going to invent something else that we all gotta have, you know. So I don't knock anything, and I kind of let my nerd techie friends, because that wasn't my idea to do Indiegogo and all that stuff. That was my techie nerd homie that was like,
you had
this
a good
is a great
team.
platform. Yeah. And, you know, you gotta have, you know, I'm not great at everything. So, you know, it's part of having that team and that infrastructure that suggests some things that might be out your comfort zone.
Fresh minds on the team, for sure.
And let's utilize all platforms and bubble. Yeah. Because the other part is, I mean, think about this. We're almost right back to where we started. Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. So most of them are like, pay us money for these many ads. So if I'm Independent Willie, I got $100 on it for a week. What do you think, you know, Capitol Records got on it?
Right.
Right. So now you still doing the same marketing upside down, backwards, period. So it's
I always tell people who, when they talk about what we do, I'm like, listen, I'm not Adele or Jay-Z or Beyonce. You're not gonna see my face on the side of a bus.
Right.
Like where I'm not Taylor Swift, where I could be like, I'm cool on Spotify.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I'm like,
I need it all.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you know, it's hard to. It's always gonna be money at the end of the day. If they're gonna outspend us, and that means they're gonna get more promotion. My job is to not. I can't be the most visible burger. I just got to make a really good burger and promote the hell out of it.
And keep them coming back to eat.
Yeah, to eat at my burger. I'm a mom and pop burger spot. I'm a, you know, you know what? My biggest thing is, and this is not a critique, or maybe it is, but it's in love and it ain't no hater stuff. A lot of times I look at, you know, Jay and Ye and so. I'm like, bro, y'all got like too big where y'all talking about Picassos and niggas just trying to get their record played, bro. So when you make an outlet for us? And so I'm really thinking everything went wrong when Bob Johnson sold BET.
Well, you know, he's a conservative.
Yeah, I get
He
it.
wasn't thinking like how he's supposed to be thinking.
Right.
That's the problem with having billionaires. We only got 12 billionaires out of 1,600. 1,600 billionaires, 12 are black. Right? And out of those ones, it's like Chris Rock said, they had to be the top of their game in entertainment to even, you know, he said we got to fly to where the white man could walk to. Right? But when you think about it, that's the whole game, right? That's the whole problem, is that you have people who get billions of dollars or millions of dollars and they have no knowledge of self. And so even if we were to get, like, say we were to get reparations, forget billionaires for a second, say they was to give us reparations right now, well, are we politically educated enough to be able to invest in our communities? Or are we gonna go out there and you know how
everybody gonna have a fat gold
It's not
chain.
everybody though. It's not everybody.
And it's not even,
I know, I'm just
It's a lot of people, and it's like my generation or whatever. It's a lot of. I hate to say woke because now everybody says that, whatever. But it's a lot of people in my generation that want the black community to be bettered and know that investing is what's going to do that. Like, I have friends that are owning houses and then renting those houses to their other black friends to keep that money in the community. So that's not what's going to happen to everybody. It's like, you know, a large few, but the people that are actually going to be able to invest the money, they're going to be able to do something.
Yeah, and I would never speak about the community like it's a monolith.
Right.
But I do think that when the problem is that the reason why we have so much, our dollar is worth so much. The black dollar is worth so much, but not for us.
Well, I mean, first of all, we're 99% consumer. So black people, and I forgot how much we make per year, but it's insane and it's a shame. But I don't know a store, I don't know a family, I don't know a human being that could sustain being 99% consumer. If you only know country, no government, no restaurant, if that's your business model, you're a whore. You're upside down. You're a prostitute. You're a slave. And so we've enslaved ourselves to honestly, to wanting things that may not necessarily be in our best interest.
Right.
And that's an individual thing. Who am I to tell people not to buy
that's
that kind of shirt?
You can't judge people.
Right.
No, you can't judge it, but it needs to be untaught. And it's
That's
like,
exactly
that's why
right.
we
There
need
you
to
go.
have in our communities where we're having, classes that are showing you how to invest your money or telling you things that you should buy instead of just the name brand thing. Because like
Right, and it's us that is doing that.
Yeah.
It's not in the schools. It's not in the public schools. It's us that are coming together.
It's us because we just have to be cool. And it's like we're a stylish ethnic group, but we don't need to wear Gucci. We don't need to wear any of that stuff when we can design our own stuff. And like even with going to the BET, like it sucks that he sold it because it's like all these black people are working, but they're not working for us. That money's not coming back to us now.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking financial literacy mixed with political education.
Right.
That's really...
That is fundamentally exactly what it is.
Yeah. A while ago, I was doing a mixtape, and I asked you for a record. And you said, I got this record. It's called Catch Me If You Can. All right? Catch Me If You Can is the name of the record. It's because you were on the run. You were a fugitive.
Oh, no.
I would like to say I walked away.
Okay.
Oh, you were on the wall?
Can we talk about this a little bit?
Yeah.
Why were you arrested?
Okay, so there is a narrative that we create because I can never tell the truth, because I incriminate people other than myself. So I'm not a snitch. I don't do tell-alls and all that. So the narrative was I drank and drive. That's not quite, that's part of it, but that's not exactly what the story is. And so until I decide that I want to bring other people's names into the story, which is totally the factual truth, I just owned it. I blew it. Don't drink and drive. It's not smart. It's not a good thing. But that's not really the big part of it. At the same time, my company decided that, because that happened like a year before. And then, you get a good lawyer and, you drag it out, and then I was probably gonna have house arrest. I was also dating like the boss's niece, and that probably wasn't a good idea.
Okay.
And we had a bad breakup, and everything really went to shit. So, whatever. So there's some other extraneous factors. But basically, when they found out that the Dr. Dre record, they couldn't make it to single, they said, we're not gonna put your album out, and shut up and go to jail, and we'll catch you later. And then I said, nah, it's not gonna work out that way. I got kids. So I went in there with the homie, and may or may not put a gun on the table, and then I said, give me my SCSI drive, and I took my SCSI and I flew to New York. And that's how it worked.
And that's when I ran into you.
Yeah. And then I bought the Stinking Minkin.
Right.
Stinking Minkin.
I bought the Stinking Minkin. I bought an apartment. It got me an apartment in Astoria. And the whole thing was, I was gonna make this money. I wanted to make $100,000. You know Razzatage, you know my, you know T-Drum, whatever. So my whole thing was get some money, because I know I'm gonna have to sit down probably 2 or 3 years, and these people just waited a whole year purposely to kind of wait out the clock because they mad at me because I can't tell Dr. Dre, I won't tell Dr. Dre to put out the single. I'm telling you, that's like that real, that arrogance of like you do what we tell you to do.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about, the shit that some people do, is that you do what I tell you or you're gonna suffer consequences. Like whatever, bro. So I took my stuff, I made a project in the meantime, and then I was gonna turn myself in. So I always say I never went on a run. I was not gonna reward somebody that disrespected me. This is my career, my life. You knew I caught the case. But we had a year. We could have shot our videos, done what we needed to do, and I could have sat down and been gone for however long I was gonna be gone. And odds are I wasn't even gonna be gone. I would have had house arrest. But you probably shouldn't let your label get your lawyer too. So I learned a lot. I learned a lot.
Right.
So, that was it. I bought me a black mink from the Fur District. From
So how long did you end up getting?
I was sentenced to 3.5, so I ended up doing about 21 months.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
I did 17 hours, and I don't know how I survived.
Everybody's not built for it. A lot of people, for me, unfortunately, I'm cut from that cloth. Like, I'm a Watts baby. The ironic part is my friends saw me and were like, Ras, you're smart. What are you doing here? Then it's like, oh, but you're dumb. Yeah, you should be here. So, I got homies, and I let my mother down, I let my kids down, I let myself down. But I'm not, you gotta learn from your mistakes. I didn't even learn from my mistakes that time. I still did some more stuff and got myself put back in prison. But I mean, I've kind of been doing jail. Like I said, I didn't like my pops. He was a police officer. So what do you think I was doing?
Wow.
I was going to, you know, I was rebelling against my father. So I've been going to juvenile hall and CYA since whenever.
Back in the day.
So I'm cut from that cloth. I'm okay with it. Like, honestly, I always tell people, you know, if you want to do nothing with your life, but you want a roof over your head, just go to prison. You'll be all right.
And what do you think changed your, what happened that you decided, oh, okay, I'm done with going to prison?
Money. I like money and women. Like, it's fun to touch girls. Do you understand?
I know.
Do you understand what, first of all, prison is like sensory deprivation. That's purposely what they're doing to you.
Yeah, Sada talks about that, and she talks about solitary in her autobiography, about that being the worst part of prison, not having access to human touch.
Yeah, to human touch, because we're dudes in there. So unless you want to be touched by a dude, that's not my issue. So yeah, man, like when you just like, bro, but you ain't touched a human being in 4 months. So you just waiting for a visit so you could hug your mom, smell a woman, smell, touch a hand that's soft and get a hug, you know, and that, you start being much more rigid, and some people never come back from that. I mean, even I was, you know, it's gonna affect you no matter what. And I didn't have any traumatic, per se, experience. I had the normal experience. But it just, it sucks. It sucks to not be, it sucks to, everybody in prison, well, I wouldn't say everybody, shouldn't talk in, you know, whatever, but there's so many people in there that made a mistake and probably got sentenced harsher than they should have been sentenced, that actually aren't even bad people. A lot of people had drug problems. A lot of people have money problems. That's why people
Poverty
steal stuff.
So
Poverty.
mental health used to be so
people are
much
penalized
cheaper.
for poverty.
Yeah.
And so, literally homeless people they take them to jail because they're homeless and call it loitering.
Right.
Like, where are they gonna go?
It's crazy because I think I said this on another episode, and it's like we can definitely limit the amount of people that are on jail if you make it easier for people to live. You're giving people minimum wage that they can live off of, because a lot of times people are committing crimes just to survive. Like, they don't want to be a criminal.
And well, the other part is you got to remember, somebody's got to lose. This is all for profit. These prisons are for profit. Same thing. Right now they're locking up little brown babies and stealing them from their parents for profit. It costs. Right now we are all paying in our taxes. I believe the number was $400 a day for them to not give a kid nothing to eat, to give them not give a baby
a shower.
So, like, we live in an evil country right now. We should own that. We should all own it and hate.
And we are responsible for it too.
We are all responsible for an evil, evil country. And whatever we get collectively, we earned it right now.
It's sad.
Because if it happened to any of our family members, our little babies, you would be ready to kill something. Now, with that being said, it costs $40 to feed a kid and keep the families together, blah, 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 blah. We're paying $400 for them to abuse the babies. And that's what prison is. It costs $10,000 a year to incarcerate and $1,000 a year to give a kid an education, book, and da-da-da.
Mental health.
Right.
So we know what we're doing. Our country knows what it's doing. This is not by accident, it's by design. Somebody wants to lose. They're like, who's the fodder for the cannon? Did you ever, I'm sorry because I was talking about something very serious, but I just thought about something really funny. Did you ever see, South Park when they had Operation Darkies in Front? They was going to war. They had all the black niggas strapped to the tanks.
Right. That's the South Park movie. Yeah.
It's so funny. But that's what
He's
this
like,
is.
what about the Emancipation Proclamation? I don't listen to hip hop.
They had the darkies over there, all the darkies on the tank, bro. So
Operation,
that's what this is.
yeah.
That's a bit of comedy, though.
I mean, and we're living in that. It's always fodder, and that's what prison is about. Somebody's got to lose so they can make some bread. If you got everybody back right,
no one's making money.
Well, you can't make money that way by being an evil person. But some people are wired that way, and some people that think. I was just reading about the pedophile dude. He was on, his whole thing was that he was just going to inseminate so the future people don't.
Which dude? There's so many of them.
I was just about to say that. It's a lot.
Epstein is actually on some eugenics. So his whole thing was That's why he was raping young upstate New York,
Right.
Girls, but he wanted to breed everybody after him and don't feed the homeless, let them die, Darwinian
Billionaire
law.
talk.
Yeah, billionaire talk.
You know what's crazy about that? I did a Comedy Central show called This Is Not Happening. And I told a story about going to this billionaire's house. And he was having this extravagant party where it was just him and a bunch of girls and me and Lionel Richie. It was only dudes there. Just me and Lionel Richie.
Wow.
Right? And I told the story in Comedy Central. And the end of the story is I was supposed to stay for 3 nights. I stayed one night, and then after the first night, I was like, this is not my scene. I got to get up out of here. Like, I felt like the evil spirit.
Wow.
And I tell the story. I called my father that night, and I was like, something's not right. I got to leave. The girls I was with was the wrong type of girls I should have been hanging out with.
Right.
They was of age, but they was the wrong
Right.
type. You know what I'm saying?
Disclaimer.
Yeah. But that disclaimer is important because his name comes up in the Epstein report. They boys, that's who he was hanging out with. So I never understood exactly what made me want to leave until this year.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's whatever he was.
Confirmation of what your sixth.
Whatever was going on, I didn't need to be around that.
Right.
Yeah, man.
You got to go with your gut.
You got to.
Yeah, rap life brings us to some. I remember the guy who picked me up. He lived on some island in the Bahamas, and the guy who picked me up was like his personal driver or some shit. He was like, "Oh, so you're a rapper, huh?" Like I was the rapper.
Wow.
So you ever been in a party where you're the rap guy?
Right.
It's like that movie, the Boots Riley movie, when they're like, rap. Yeah, sorry to bother you.
Oh.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Bleu Davinci is your cousin
Yes, he is.
from BMF.
Yes.
Now, when you say that, did y'all grow up together?
Yeah. Blue. Well, there's two in BMF. So S-Class, who's a producer, he's from Inglewood. That's Stephen Baptiste. And then there's Blue. So I have a big family out here. My family's first generation. Well, I'm first generation LA dude. My mother came out here when she was 17 with my grandmother. So my grandmother's family came from Mansour, Louisiana. Let's see, 8 sisters, 4 brothers.
Wow. And
then we sprinkle out through Watts, basically. And so I have a big family out here. We don't all hang, and then the, politics of families. My grandmother, some people didn't like her husband because my grandfather was dark-skinned, was a dark-skinned dude from Louisiana. Politics of families, bro. Just that color, light-skinned, dark-skinned stuff. I mean, that happens, man.
Absolutely.
We do it to ourselves first. So, not all of us were close. And then there's different age brackets. You know what I'm saying? So when I'm 15, they like 12. I don't want to hang with them.
Right,
I want
right.
to hang with the 17-year-olds.
Right.
So we got cooler through the music when I first started working on music. Because Steph is a producer, Blue was the rapper. And after the first album, my whole thing was, I can't, my cousin was kind of upset. Steph, S-Class, he was a little upset because he was like, yo, I'm sending you beats, why don't you use no beats? I'm like, look, I'm not in a power position, I'm not Tupac, and they are really fighting with me on what beats to use. I was like, I'll tell you what the logic is. I'll just take Blue with me. They can kind of fight with me about the beats if it ain't Diamond D or so-and-so, whatever. But they can't fight with me on who my hype man could be. So that's what happened. I pulled Blue in with me on that level. Also, our big Blue's my cousin, and he's also from the gang of the neighborhood that we live in.
Right.
So Wino, my big homie, is his big homie on some straight G shit.
Right.
And so it was just easier. It was an easier fit to have him travel with us. Wino is the first person that introduced us to DJ Pooh. DJ Pooh.
Shout out to DJ Pooh.
He puts, he just takes a liking to Blue because Blue just had a big mouth and was like funny. He had jokes. He a gunner. He's a street dude. But he's also hilariously funny. So Blue was funny. Pooh wrote him into a movie, 3 Strikes, and let him be Blue in the movie.
Right.
Love that movie.
And then from there, Pooh and Wino met Meech and them because they had came out here specifically to work with Pooh. And then Bleu got pulled in. And then honestly, the truth of that story is Meech, I was supposed to be the president. So it was gonna be me as a president, kind of like some, I'm trying to think of something like a Dame Dash Jay-Z type thing. So I would have been the president, Bleu would be the artist, because I'm the one that had the experience on a major deal. I opted out, Bleu went in as the artist and the CEO with Meech. And then they were out here in LA, but it wasn't really making sense. It was just a weird time in LA, and my logic was that I know my home. And I was like, because, Meech and them, they were really good dudes, man. And I've been around a lot of money. I've been around football money, basketball money, music industry money. I ain't never seen money like that. So
Me neither.
I was like, bro, y'all like the Benetton of cocaine, bro.
Yeah. I was at a couple of them parties and BMF parties in Atlanta and Miami back in the day.
Cousin.
This before they got to Atlanta.
Okay.
So that was why Patchworks is also foundationally made from my journey in Atlanta. So my whole thing was take this to the Woadies. That's what I called Atlanta dudes at the time. I was like, yo, take this to the Woadies, because if you stay in LA, they're gonna start sending chicks at you, a torpedo, because y'all got way too much money and don't nobody really know y'all. They know Bleu, but Bleu ain't never had Maseratis and blah, blah, blahs.
Right.
I remember one time they all went in the club. They was all in the club. They looked crazy. They looked crazy because I was like, who is these dudes in this? It was these dudes in like a night at Roxbury. Yeah, they had them kind of.
They came in like.
Finally, yeah. So they had the night at Roxbury. And it was Meech and Bleu. I'm like, what is that y'all got on? He's like, no, the shark skin. I was like, bro, that don't work here, bro. You can't. That's not a good outfit for LA.
Right.
But they was, they just had money, and my logic was, and I'm sure Bleu and they all realized that. There was some other things that happened. I was like, bro, these dudes is jackers. They're gonna be haters. They're gonna be mad at y'all because y'all out here doing it way big. So then, I know I threw that idea out. At some point, they decided to use the favor and go to Atlanta, go to Patchworks, and the rest is history. Next thing you know, Kron, when I'm in prison, Kron, I'm calling collect, and Kron get on the phone like, your cousin Bleu was crazy.
Wait, is that your Kron Don impersonation?
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Exhibit like, Bleu going to jail, cuz. Now I talk to Bleu, he like, man, I don't care. We was in the club. I think basically, apparently, they created Making It Rain.
Yeah, man, I've seen some
created.
things. Like I was partying, really not so much Atlanta, but the Miami scene.
Yeah, bro.
When they was in Miami, it was like.
Yeah, so when they throw up BMF, they're throwing up 190, which is our neighborhood, period. It's designed, the whole hand, everything. So the streets is Bleu and all our homies, and then Meech and them had money.
And wasn't there an issue with Rick Ross for talking about they call me Big Meech?
I don't know. I won't say much about what I. Yeah. No. He said I think I'm Big Meech. But he never met Big Meech. He never met Meech. Bleu will tell you that. Look, when you get popular, everybody think they know you. You know what I'm saying?
But it was a reference. I mean, like we were just talking about. Yeah. It was a huge thing in Miami.
And Atlanta.
Ross,
they was
but Ross was in Miami. Like he's in them clubs with Khaled at Opium at that time, seeing how they doing it. So it was more like a, what I'm saying?
Yeah, like a reference.
Respect thing,
a rhyme reference. Yeah.
So they was like back in the days. They were saying, "I'm going to the club. I'm gonna make a movie."
Yeah.
Right? You've been in it. Maybe as many movies as albums as you have. You know what I'm saying? Like you're a full-fledged actor, like actor. You've been in the hood classics, my nigga.
I have,
He's a method actor, actually.
This
That's
man
why
is.
he did his
I got
stuff.
the hookup.
I know.
Yeah.
Tell us about how that happened.
Just because P was a cool dude, man. Honestly, shouts out once again, free Big Meech too. P was always a nice dude to me because he's my label mate, Priority Records, and he actually just called me, just like, "Hey, Baldy, what you doing?" Or something.
Right.
I don't know. He's like, yeah, he did that. He put me in. he put me in Foolish too. I believe there's a part where I'm walking up with Eddie Griffin and I just get to say, "Hey, I'm Ras Kass," and then that's that. Like, I don't know.
Connections get you more things than anything, and
I think relationships. Yeah,
that's
connections,
networking, and that's
yeah.
what it's like. Because it's not just about talent. Because you can have the same talent as someone else, but it's like, okay, who do I want to spend all day on set with?
Yeah, true.
For LA though, it's kind of ill because it's like y'all have this proximity to Hollywood, and you know I don't be in LA as much now, but I spent a good 10 years living in LA, and coming from the East Coast, what I notice is, you know, when you come from the East Coast and you're here to work in the entertainment industry, you're not spending no time in the hoods in LA.
Of course.
You don't really get to the hood until you start to know people, you start visiting people. You're like, oh, this is not West Hollywood or wherever it is was they was having me.
NoHo.
Yeah, wherever y'all be at, you know.
I live in the jungle, street cred, baby.
Well, you know, she came out here to grind.
Wow, yeah,
She
you
came out
came
here
out
to
selling
grind.
crack.
Yeah,
you know.
I'm in the jungle, baby.
What I notice is I feel like LA is the type of town where it could be seductive if you're not on a billboard, you're not really doing it. Or if you're not in some sort of TV thing or some sort of, and everyone, like you just said, Bleu Davinci was in the Pooh movie. Pooh was writing movies.
Right.
But these are streets that you in the movies. Like it's adjacent to like Watts. You in Watts.
Hood
but
adjacent.
Hollywood is on the horizon.
Right. Well, I think what the interesting dynamic to me is that we have a natural, what we had. I don't know about younger, you know, the 20-year-old. We had a natural abhorrence to Hollywood. We coined the term. You're acting Hollywood.
Right.
So we're very specific. It's just like a New York dude, 9 times out of 10, especially in the city, probably wouldn't say, "I'm from New York." He'd be like,
I'm from Brooklyn.
Bronx, Queens, Long Island.
New York,
Island.
what's that? What's that?
Long Island,
What's that
baby.
got to do with, you know, what block I live on in Brooklyn?
Where you from, Syracuse, nigga?
Right. Right. So I think a lot of us had a natural, like, this is before downtown even got popping. We all partied and met in Hollywood. And that's where everybody, whether you were from Long Beach, Inglewood, West Covina, you know, Venice Beach, whatever. That was our point of meeting. The Valley, whoever came in, that's where we all met and hung out at. And that's kind of where you would get those opportunities to do movie stuff, and then that's when people look like, oh, I want to be an actor, or I want to be a dancer, I want to be, you know, and then we had to start. We worked and played in Hollywood, but then we went back home to our places in LA, and so we're spread out, whereas New York is built up, so you're forced to deal with people. We don't really have to. We have a different mentality, so we're very cliquey. I always feel like like LA's a very cliquey place. Like, it's like, oh, I hang with these guys. And so, and literally, there was a time when the young black actors only hung out with the young black rappers. We didn't even hang out with the black R&B guys. And then the young white actor kids hung. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we really did that.
Yeah.
Like, it would be Keenan and Kel throwing, you know what I'm saying? Little house parties, and only certain people could, you know, go hang out.
Yeah.
It's crazy because, like, I realize that because, you know, I've lived in a bunch of places now. In New York, like, it takes you the most an hour to get anywhere unless you're going upstate. But here, like, California is very spread out. LA is very spread out, and it's very cliquish.
Very cliquish, and then it's going to be hard to get through those doors unless you, once
Know
again,
somebody.
we establish that people are social, you know, the social and networking and who you know. So that's, people start going to specific clubs because they want to be down with those actor kids, or they want to be down with those rapper dudes, or, you know, or they want to be directors. It's like, it's kind of crazy because we really have like those bars.
Right.
It's like, oh, that's the director people's bars. That's, you know what I mean? It's crazy.
Right.
We got a very interesting dynamic.
As somebody, Ras Kass, as somebody who has been listed on Pitchfork and About and all these, you know, not so much knowing about the culture, but you're also on Dr. Dre's list. Like, you're listed on all these top 10 lists and people's top 5. I'm not going to ask you who your top 5 is.
Thank you.
But who, right, you know, we get that. Right. I'm going to ask you, who are the MCs that influence your style? Like, for me, I can say my style is like a amalgamation of KRS-One, Q-Tip, early Ice Cube. You put that in a pot, you got what I'm doing.
You got what you was cooking with.
Yeah.
That's pretty, let's see. All right, I'm gonna have to go KRS-One.
Chris is definitely, for
Oh,
what we
yeah,
do,
for
is
me,
like
yeah.
the standard bearer.
it's I don't know if it's Ice Cube or Ren. It's one of them.
So that's our interlope, our overlap right there, right? That's our interlope. Our overlap is Karis and Ice Cube.
And Ice Cube.
That's why we get along.
Yeah. Probably. And then I'm trying to think of my third though.
Q-Tip for me, because one, the native tongues, I felt comfortable. When I saw that De La Soul video and Jungle Brother, I'm like, I'm not a tough guy like that. I'm like, that I look like them. I relate to them. And then Q-Tip had a soft voice, and I always had a soft voice. So just for him being so good at his craft, but naming himself something off and quirky, having a soft voice, not really being hard and gangster, that was my lane. But I was also like pro-black, and I thought I was Ice Cube and Q-Tip at the same time because I wanted to be fiery, but I was like also like native tonguish too.
With the easy listening voice. A little bit. Yeah. I don't know who my third is. That it would be somewhere between a pun and an L and a pharaoh. Just
like lyricist.
Just a real, no intonation, just bars.
I noticed that about your tracks though. Like your most compelling tracks are that. To me, that's what I know I'm gonna get Ras, cause like this is rap shit.
Right.
For other rappers.
Yeah.
To impress other rappers.
I'm talking to my peers. Yeah. Yeah, I just did one, Grammy speech. I wrote this record called Grammy Speech because, at the rate I'm going, I may not win one.
Right.
And so I just wrote what I would say.
Right. I'm still from that Chuck D school. Who gives a fuck about a goddamn Grammy?
Crib, Chuck D.
I just wanted to, I was thinking about ODB when I wrote it. So I was just thinking like.
Wu-Tang for the children?
Right. And what would I say in that moment if I was there and just
He said, Puffy's good, but Wu-Tang is for the children. That's the part people forget.
Yeah.
He said, Puffy's good, but Wu-Tang is for the children.
Yeah, no, so it was just, it was inspired by ODB, just keeping it a buck. And so I just wrote that scenario. It's on the new album, man. So, yeah, but those are the ones where I feel like only my MCs would imagine. Because I've just, I know you've been at an award show and just been like.
Had to spit on a nigga?
No, a mush spit. That's what
it was awesome. I was like.
Mush spit.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But with that said, is there anybody new? Who are the newer dudes that, and I'm talking strictly lyricists. I'm not talking popularity.
I never do that because I feel like I'm such a fan of so many people and I'm not going to remember everybody. I just feel like you do a disservice and then people do a lot of plugging the same names. I just love hip hop. I will say this. I feel like 2017, 18, and we'll see about 19. I'm still waiting to see. But I felt like last 2 years, amazing years in hip hop. People made fire albums. Like, I've just really been impressed with the quality of people going and doing their craft. Book of Ryan.
That's the one that was on my mind. When you said people been making incredible albums, the first thing that popped in my head was Book of Ryan.
Yeah, man.
That's the one over the last couple of years. That one made me just, goddamn, this nigga
busy.
Royce, man.
J. Cole is my person.
J. Cole is super dope.
Of course. I just didn't want to name one and not name all these other amazing people that are doing amazing jobs.
But I agree with you that Book of Ryan deserves a special place.
Yes. In past 3 years, but Royce did that. That's crazy. But shouts out to all the dope people and groups that have been really making amazing music, man. It's just, as a fan, I've been, it's a battery in my back, and I nobody signs up, and if you did, that's your mental issue. I didn't sign up for second place, so I didn't sign up to be, riding nobody else. I don't, there are no, seat belts on cocks. I'm not riding on none of that. So, sorry.
There's no seat belts on cocks.
So, my thing is, I want to be first, and I'm trying to make the best I can make to be number one. But just because I'm striving to be the best doesn't mean I can't give everybody their props.
That's
so
right.
I think everybody that's making good music deserves their props.
Well, number one in the hearts and the minds of the people, Ras Kass, ladies and gentlemen.
Razzie!
Listen to the champion.